I'm just waiting for us to go live. Usually takes like a few seconds between Rumble and the YouTube in order for this to initialize. And so usually I just look at, okay, it says on the Restream dashboard, we should be live. After I click one more button, which it always makes me click. I gotta get an intro, you know, I need an intro. I need a cool intro. I need a cool intro like Blaine's Escape Corner, just to drop a reference here. But he's got a cool little intro, a nice countdown, you know, static image, but you know, nice numbers that are of matching color scheme. Are we vive? Yes, we are vive. We are live, as they would say in Spain, or you know, on the Spanish channel in America. So hopefully I don't miss any messages on the whatchamacallit, Rumble chat, but I'm pulling up the YouTube chat, which apparently requires me to refresh it. There we go, we're good. And of course, we need that YouTube chat open so that we can click on the you know, button and see some messages. I really should come up with a little procedure for starting these out. You know, I'm sure there's a way to do this, but for now, I would just implore people to fast forward like a minute or two. That would probably be the best thing to do, is fast forward like 1 minute. And if I really should, I wonder if there's a way to not so much edit a YouTube video, but set it up so that it fast forwards automatically. All right, here we go. We're going to begin now. We're connecting to the backyard computer in order to engage in some astro imagery. And boy, sure hope the quality of this image gets better. There we go. Okay, good. That's actually improved quality compared to a minute ago. So we're using a remote access program called Parsec. And if we toggle into full screen mode, which I think is Windows logo key F, or no, Control Shift W, you can see here that we got a picture of, it's actually a star cluster. It's got this little L shape in the middle. And so at the beginning of this astronomy stream, I'll go over what we're looking at. I had a choice between the North American Nebula, which I've done before, and interestingly, it looks really well defined on an infrared filter, because in an area near New York, you can really, you know, the only way to like absolutely block out light pollution, or almost absolutely block it all out while collecting a bunch of useful light, is to use a planetary infrared filter. And so in the past, on my high magnification telescope, I discovered that, and I thought that was really exciting. But if we move up here, we have a neighboring, you know, nebula, or thing that looks like a nebula, you know, gas cloud, gaseous clouds. And if we zoom in, we have a bright-ass star called Sadur. See, it says SDR. And then over here, you have the inchworm cluster. So I decided to put my focus on the inchworm cluster. I don't know why this nebula doesn't have a clear label on it. It must have something to do with how bright it is. I suspect if I tell the, you know, utility, if I crank up the amount of AOIs, no, that didn't work, but you know, you can crank up the amount of visible items, and you can crank up your hint. Hints are basically like, it'll show you the names of stars or galaxies or other things that, like, you know, will kind of guide you to the sky. If you go on all visual, you're going to use constellations. You're going to use, you know, stars. Stars are what you can see. So usually in the beginning of this hobby, when I was doing things a lot more manually, I would turn on the constellation layer, which, you know, are these little lines, which are going to be hard to see because I have the equatorial and the altitude azimuth grid. So if we do, let's see, if we press Z and E, now you can see the constellations. And so in the beginning of this hobby, I was eyeballing everything. And so, it was really helpful to have these constellations laid out so that I can compare the patterns of stars. Today, the atmosphere had a lot of sky glow. Now, I'm not in the yard right now, and I don't have like a wide field camera on the sky, so I can't tell. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. These studio lights don't make it easy. Yeah, nah, there's like no way to look out that window and see much right now. I need to get like a remote control. Hey, Indy, what's up? It's good to see you, Henry. Yes, Dr. Henry. I was reading the profile, as a matter of fact, today because I don't know. I liked the thing you shared, Indy, and I never commented on it. And then today I was like in the bathroom, not to be given detail, and I was like, oh shit, Indiana Jones. And I do want to give a shout out to my dear friend Norma, which had a little glitch here because the picture disappeared. I hate when that happens, but that's okay. It's wonderful to see you, Norma. I hope all is well. I was thinking about you the other day. I was talking to Dimitri because, the new maintenance guy. Okay, so the guy who replaced you, the guy who replaced you at work, Norma. Nice kid. He's a nice kid. He's a young fella. Young Italian kid, right? But he doesn't know how to close that effing door to the utility room. Like, he goes into the room, like, I'm just sitting there nonchalantly, and he lets that door slam shut. Like, I gotta close my window to emulate this. It's like, he lets go of the door, it's like, boom. And I'm like, Jesus, like, every time. So now I know to brace myself for it. But, like, I go on my 15, 20-minute nap break on, during the day. And, like, I'll be down the hallway, and this dude will be like, I'll hear this freaking door slam. And so, yeah, I want to recognize Norma for, like, not slamming the freaking door to the air conditioning / maintenance room or, equipment room. Because Norma and just about everyone but the new guy, in fact, there's a newer guy who has the, common courtesy not to slam the door. So it's the second to last newest employee in the facilities team or whatever who slams that door. And I kind of want to talk to him about it, but I mean, like, I don't want to be like annoying, like some old guy, like, hey, Bucko, come here, but I don't know, maybe I'll politely say to him, hey, I don't know, because I remember when I started working retail, there was like a, like a training tool, whatever, video or manual, and they told you when you hang up the phone on a customer, put your finger on the little button, when you on the hook before, so, the key being, you don't want to hang up on a customer and be like, you want to be like, doot, and then put the hook down so that the customer doesn't get that sense that you're hanging up on them. And I want to say it's ironic that Indiana Jones has dropped by today because we have you in Carbonite right here, buddy. See? Indiana Jones in Carbonite? Or I should say Henry in Carbonite right there. I don't have the Henry figurine right here. It's actually in a toy chest that used to be buried under my turtle tank. The good news is the toy chest is no longer buried under a turtle tank, which is really great because if it was, whoops, wrong button. I'm looking for a graphic right now. Let me see if I can find a picture here of the turtle tank real quick. Indy, holy crap, the chat just like updated all at once. Like I gotta like look into that. But yeah, I had like a delay on the chat, and then out of nowhere, like 5 messages just went boom, 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 boom. I'm an archaeologist, not an astrological specialist. Well, Indy, you got to bear in mind, buddy, that it might sometimes be helpful to use astronomical, alignment. In fact, the constellations would be. Look, I mean, I think like I watched this documentary called Zeitgeist, and I didn't watch. My coworker made me watch part 2 or one of the. I mean, I watched the documentary a long time ago, and I mean, like, it has some interesting points, but there was like huge red flags in this documentary, but. He was saying, "Oh, you'd really like this documentary because they mentioned the stars and shit." And I'm like, "I'll check it out." And it was like basically talking about like how the pyramids are built under constellations and all of this crap. It's like stuff I knew already, but a lot of it was like worse than astrology. Like at least astrology has like a history behind it and a lot of records and whatnot. This was like a step down from astrology, which is saying a lot in my opinion. But here we go. I found a picture right here, friends. I look in the ground, astrologist, oh, that's another thing. I said, see, I should have caught that right off the bat. Astrologists, astrologers, astrology. That is not the same as astronomer, my friend, but that's okay. It's forgivable because a lot of people do it. But I do want to point out that astronomy and astrology are not the same. Look at that. See, my homeboy gets it. Thank you, Indy. I know, ain't it? And I appreciate it. That's cool. Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, shit. Yeah, so I think I have this in a bucket somewhere. Well, it's either in a bucket or let's see if it's in this photo here. So, in the picture we're looking at on screen, and here we go again. Oh, look at that. Sports and gaming. Yeah, you updated the name there. Action Man Sports and Gaming. Because you do a lot of sports, it's true. He's big on sports games that are, modern gaming graphics, right? So they look hyper realistic, and sometimes I think he's restreaming a real basketball game. So anyway, of course, we have like, Boba Fett with Han Solo and Carbonite getting ready to ship him off to God knows where. In fact, he was bringing him to Vader, I guess. No, Jabba's palace. But yes, I don't have Han Solo here. I don't know if I have a Han Solo figure. I got Princess Leia in a golden bikini, aka Slave Leia. I have a speeder bike guy right here. Hard to see, he's kind of behind it, but it's the guy with the rectangular helmet. We got Luke from Shadows of the Empire when he was disguised as a palace guard because, of course, they had to infiltrate Prince Shizor's palace in that movie. In that movie, I should say, video game. And, Prince Shizor. Yeah, that thing is definitely not updating at the speed of light. I'm going to have to close it, reopen it. Okay. Really liked having it set up differently, but we're going to do that. Oh, great. My browser is taking a sweet time load. That's why you see the little white box there. All right, there we go. This is the best stream ever. But yeah, that's literally the picture. We can see Han Solo right there. So technically, yeah, this mofo would belong behind that mofo. And we'll get back to the astronomy in a second. But yeah, I figure it's really autocorrect. Yeah, I hear you, bro. Typing on a phone. I understand, and I'll let the error slide. Knowing that you know the difference, if you type astrology again, I won't even correct you because I know how it is. Like, when you type stuff on a phone while using YouTube, the YouTube app, it could be a pain in the butt because it doesn't auto-populate names. Like, what I mean is, when I type in a name here, I could type in anyone's name like this, and I get auto-populate. But when I do it on my phone, you have to open up the web browser, load the web page in your web browser, and then you'll get it. Then it'll work, So it's a minor thing, but it's annoying on the phone because, of course, opening to the web browser is convoluted. It wastes battery power. But anyway, let's get back to the astrology. So, as you can see, the stars align on my birthday, and that means that I am a crazy man. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. They say when the stars align and shit. But anyway, jokes aside, this, like I said, there's a nebula. You got some cloudiness here. This texture is not our atmosphere, because if these clouds were from our atmosphere, I took a 5-minute exposure, the image would be way overexposed. You wouldn't get this level of detail. But, you can see some texture here, some areas where it gets darker here, brighter there. You got like a little crescent shape there. You got this bright star, Saturn, and Saturn is actually reflecting light. Light is being reflected off of a neighboring cloud. And we can see some of that, but, really, this might have been a Hubble image right here. The original data here culmination of raw data. This might be from a Hubble image, or maybe what we're looking at here is light reflecting off of this neighboring thingamajig here. But, either way, no big deal. Just my camera's image frame is about that big, so you can see the little red square or red rectangle. We do have some stuff here that might be interesting to image, although I think I would recenter it. I'd rather have the round bit here if it registers. And if it was on my old orange telescope, I'd probably be working on this Crescent Nebula, which has a magnitude of 7.4, which means that it wouldn't be terribly difficult to register. It's just that at higher magnification, you get these nice detailed tendrils and all of this stuff, whereas on my scope, it would be like a crescent in the center of the frame, which might not be bad. Maybe if I started I don't know, like if I might change my mind, might pick that one to image next. But as the seasons draw on, we tend to get different objects in the sky, and so there's a web browser based version of Stellarium. Like if you type Stellarium into Google with the name of this app, the web browser version makes it a little easier to change the date and time, whereas this one I can just kind of fast forward. Whoops, see, I can fast forward really a little too fast, but you get the idea. But anyway, we're going to turn the azimuth grid and equatorial grid back on. We have a Vega right here, which I believe is near Delta Vega, which is, from Star Trek. It's the refueling station they go to on the second pilot episode of Star Trek. Yeah, no, it's not a real science. It absolutely is not a real science. Like, you could, people could pretend that it's a real science, and I respect, people's choice to put more stake in it, and maybe in some ways you could put stake in it. Maybe there's something to it. But then there's times where, like, certain things don't compute. It's just not less than compute. I mean, it's like something that when you're looking at stars from the ground, it might look like they're lining up and affecting the way people are when they're born, affecting people's behaviors, affecting their, whatever changes in their mind. When you see the actual arrangement of the stars, you say, okay, that's a little bit off. Maybe this is not, the reason for X and Y. But, local phenomenon, celestial objects, solar system objects, planets lining up a certain way, yeah, I can see that, because magnetic field phenomenon, I think, is something that we're going to continue to learn more about as we get more precise instruments in that realm. And if things like the alignment of the planets may not affect my personality, but they might trigger a supernova, they might trigger a solar flare, they might increase the likelihood of solar flares or CMEs, coronal mass ejections, coming out of the sun. Maybe, like, if there's more stuff pulling on one side of the sun, it causes that, like in the opening of Star Trek Voyager. But yes, I mean, respectfully, yes. Some, sadly, maybe ignorant is a strong word, women believe in for relationships. It's kind of ironic because, like, it's like you get in a relationship, someone might go, oh shit, you're a Virgo? Oh no. And frankly, I do take some seriousness in it when it comes to Scorpios. No offense if you're a Scorpio. But, like, sometimes, like, there might be, like, I think it's maybe not a real correlation, but sometimes there seems to be a correlation that girls who are Scorpios are, like, more out there, to put it politely. But that could just be, like, correlation. What is it? Correlation without causation. Just because, the two seem to go hand in hand doesn't mean there's actually, causation from one to the other. And yeah, Ferengi, I know he would have loved this, and he did. I think he tuned into one or two of these in the beginning. Federation Ferengi, I always get this, like, it's like a tongue twister. Federation Ferengi February would love this astronomy stream. Space, the final frontier. I wonder what the name is going to be this February when he does a new, month. Heck, I wonder what June is going to be. Now, just a heads up, some people are referring to June as Kaiju June because of the monster Kaiju theme, like Godzilla. And yeah, I'd say that is a fitting name for the month. So we could do, like, a little image processing here just to see what happens. Because, of course, once you get your object, once you have your nebula, galaxy, or what have you, you're going to move on, or I'm going to have to move on to processing at some point. Now, a lot of times the first image is a waste, although this one looks pretty decent. As you see, we don't see anything here. And part of that is because of the nature of, what we call histogram stretching. As you can see on the bottom right corner of this window, I have this little thing here. And so basically there's, like, yeah, this thing here shows that the majority of the pixels, or the majority of anything in this image, is dark. And in the bright bits, I don't know, it's like if you look up what a histogram is, it's basically going to say something like that. And so if you had, like, a lot of white in this image, the right side of the histogram would have more stuff on it. And in this case, that little tiny blip, I think, represents the tiny amount of lit up pixels, if I'm reading it right, and I might not be. I'll Google it later. But in any case, when you stretch the histogram, which is basically moving the adjustment slider to the left and kind of manipulating some of these stuff like this, you will be able to see more. And it's a little tricky doing this because essentially what I had to do was I had to take this white bit and bring it to the right a little bit to limit the amount of light. And as you can see, when I do it manually, it's like teetering on a knife's edge to get this balance. And I'm not even sure if I'm doing it right, but I find that, well, if the automatic histogram stretching is working, then I'll keep rolling with it, because I've been told having the gain, which basically makes the image brighter, at 1700 is optimal for this camera. You get the most contrast, most dynamic range. Some would say that this setting should be half of the gain setting. Some people would do a bunch of mathematics to calculate the actual correct setting. But generally, this is going to make the background lighter, so I tend not to crank up the offset beyond 50 on this camera. And of course, the exposure time is 5 minutes, 300 seconds. And so I'm guessing if I was to like do a 10-minute exposure and then do this, we would see more or more detail, but there's also a very high risk that we would get a lot more light pollution registering on our image here. And so we are not going to do that, but we are going to do a little preliminary processing. And what I do is I'll check the first two images. Okay, so first image is a dud because it's blurry. You got doubles of everything. So I'm actually going to just delete it now, because that raw data is never going to be useful anyway. This time here, we should be in better shape. So same concept, we crank it up. We try to get, something to register, hopefully. We can try to use one of these mathematical logarithmic functions here to get it to do something. It can be a little finicky, I'll tell you that. Like, it definitely can be like something of a learning curve. But we're going to go and dive right into this. So we're going to open a program called Deep Sky Stacker. And I should probably be running this on this computer here, but we're going to run it on the remote computer since, it saves us a little bit of time on data transfers. These are considered light frames. Dark frames would actually be like a blank picture. And of course, well, the reason we do that blank picture is because of this little thing here. You see this little line here? That is amp glow. Essentially, there's like a amplifier in there. I don't know if it's because it's outputting heat or something else is wrong with it, but the amp is kicking off a lot of noise there. You can see like, or glow, amp glow. It's literally emitting this starburst pattern off the side. And one discouraging thing about zooming in on this image here is that all the stars have they're fucked up. They're all equally fucked up in the same way. So my guess is that it could be because the auto guiding struggled on here. So we're going to try to find a better guide star. I think there's just a bunch of haze in the atmosphere, to be honest. I think that's literally what's happening. I think there's a ton of haze, and the atmosphere is extremely variable in its, brightness or intensity, and it's throwing off the auto guiding. At least I hope that's what it is. I mean, or it could be also, I did press this button here during the last picture. So it's possible when it updates the next picture, we will be in better shape, but we're going to just kind of wing it and find out. They sure were. And I got to say, like, Paramount was a juggernaut, and mainly, like, I like Star Trek. So, of course, I'm going to be inherently biased about, liking a company that makes Star Trek. I'm going to be like, these guys are great. They make Star Trek, but they had a lot of other stuff. For example, it's a great Paramount movie that was considered a cult classic, or like a cult film, if that's the correct term. One that wasn't well received when it was new. Yeah, that's very weird. I don't see the same issue with the stars on... Oh, you know what? I might be in the wrong folder. Okay. But anyway, yeah, so Event Horizon. That is an interesting movie. There's like, I made a meme out of that movie a while ago. I don't know if I have it on YouTube or if I just sent it to people by email. And it's a scene when Lawrence Fishburne, yes, Morpheus, is basically like walking down a corridor on a ship, and he's saying, like, basically he's saying, fuck this ship. And it's the coolest thing. Now, he's saying fuck this ship because the ship just took multiple lives. And the scientist guy, he's all like, oh no, it's my British project. Oh, we need to keep the ship. And Lawrence Fishburne's like, nah, F this. We're not salvaging your piece of shit ship. It killed a bunch of people already. I mean, there was literally, the ship was a haunted ship. Okay, like, Event Horizon is basically about a haunted ship. And if you've never seen it, I'm not going to ruin it unless asked to ruin it, but I would encourage people to see it. Yeah, so I don't know what that little horizontal pattern is, but I don't see it here. So, I mean, if it's not in the image we're looking at, I guess it's not an issue. I mean, I'm a little... Oh, what? Something seems off. Oh, also, what bothers me about this imaging sometimes is I sometimes get like images that are backwards, and of course, it doesn't really matter if they're backwards, like when you're processing, when you're stacking them, when you're stretching, you know, when you're doing all of the image processing. But once an image is done, you know, once you're done processing an image, it's very trivial to flip it over, you know, to make it. Okay, so the stars kind of straightened out. So that was image number 11, I believe. I think. Was that image 11 or 12? Let's see if we can figure. Whoops. Oh yeah, Alt tab don't work there. So that looks like that was image number 12, which is the newest image to be. Actually, it's not that. Okay, so this one has these diagonals. It looks like, yeah, this image looks like it's been flipped over. Oh, wait, actually, we can check more easily. Yeah, this image is upside down. I'm quite sure of it right now because, like, we could see bright star and less bright stars, but then when I look over here, yeah, that looks like it's been like mirrored and flipped if I'm looking at it correctly. And that's because some telescopes will capture images in a mirrored and flipped orientation. So one of these programs might be flipping them automatically. Oh, there we go. There's it. Yeah. And there are times where you will need to, you know, where you'll be looking at an image that is flipped, and aiming a telescope with an upside down and inverted backwards image is really a pain in the butt. But anyway, bottom line is I need to make sure I omit the image. So I think it was image number 12. Yeah, that's image 12. Image 13, lucky 13. Yeah, that one's fine. So we're gonna just eliminate 12, and we're gonna add one more image. We're gonna go ahead and process it right now. Where the heck is Deep Sky Stacker? Did I lose it? Here it is. Okay, good. So we're gonna get rid of oh wow, I got more images. I talked for so long. Let's make sure number 10 isn't messed up before I count on it. Yeah, I gotta find a way to tell this program not to be flipping the images upside down. Delete. I misspelled the word delete, but we'll deal with that later. So anyway, we got 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll drop them in there. I'm not searching for UFOs, but I will find them. I always do. Usually they're just real aircraft, you know, human aircraft, but they do get in my way, you know, like I'll be taking an image and it'll mess up the image. The camera will be blasting away for like 10 minutes and the UFO will come in the image and I don't know what it is half the time. Like, usually it's a satellite or an airliner. Now, as for, you know, actual UFOs, right, like the ones we're talking about, whether they be aliens or top secret black budget craft, I do think there's a bit of a, how do I phrase it, psychological operation at play. Because, you know, a few years ago, all of the mainstream news networks, CNN, Fox News, all of them, like, you know, on any end of the spectrum, were all covering this. And I remember my uncle was taking it super seriously on the phone one day, and then like I gave my counterpoints, and he was like, "But these military guys, oh, you know, legitimate, honest military men said this was an unknown alien origin craft." And I looked into it, and it's like, well, okay, one of the guys who said it was, I can give a name, but you know, it's the guy who used to make rounds on the news. His name was Louis Elizondo, and he had a goatee, not a soul patch, a whole goatee. I just wear a goatee because the skin gets really dry there, so if I don't shave it, it don't get dry, and I'm good. But anyway, you know, this guy would come on dressed. He was in GQ magazine, so he's this UFO a guy from the UFO Pentagon UFO office, or as they renamed it, the UAP office, and he's Mr. UFO GQ UFO guy, you know, and it was like just weird, you know. It's like you got the mainstream news taking it seriously, which generally is not the case. Usually it's fringe. Usually UFOs. I'm not saying I liked it, but the reality was UFO coverage was either fringe or questionable at best. Like it would be Ancient Aliens. It would be the History Channel. It would be like some funny, you know, like it would be stuff peppered with lies. Even if there was a real sighting of something that we had real questions about, they would throw in some, you know, extra pepper with some bullshit. And it's good to see you, Chad M. Thank you very much for dropping by today. I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. It's morning. It's early morning. It's 5 a.m. And so, yeah, when we process the image, we then usually use one of these logarithmic functions here. Then we can click apply to see if it gives us what we want. And you can see it kind of updates it in a tiled fashion. And if it doesn't, we can try to play with this bit here. As you can see, it darkens it. And so this is an area where I've been getting challenged by, because sometimes I don't see what I'm looking for, you know. And usually stacking the images, stacking multiple images together will give you more detail and more contrast. Now we're starting to see some pattern here. It's a little hard to see on, you know, the screen properly, but I am seeing something more detailed than before. Because the goal is to basically go from this rough image. We still want to get all these nice details, but we want to eliminate like the black bar, which usually requires another set of images that are processed differently. But right now, I may be having a fun time some afternoon other than right now playing with this on my own time, because I think during a stream I'll bore people getting it wrong. But once I get it right, yeah, I would happily share the process, or share at least where I got it right. Right now we're going to just do a little attempted run at getting this to look right. And I think, yeah, I can zoom in on it. Okay, whoops. But that's the only weird thing about it is I think it zooms in where the mouse pointer is. So I want to get that thing on the bottom left to look better. So one idea I have is to take this and take the little thing on the left side if it lets me. I think we don't want to so much stretch the histogram as we want to compress the histogram. So we're going to try this out right now and see how far we get. You know, we'll just get a rough idea. And this is like not the best processing. It's a convenient one to use. Has a lot of basic features or basic access to functionality. Usually I'll use a much more advanced program once I'm ready to do the real processing, but this usually gives me the ability to gauge what I'm, you know, working on. Sometimes we'll reset the image altogether. Last week, May 25th, was Star Wars Day, the real Star Wars Day, the anniversary of A New Hope. And a gentleman who has a YouTube channel by the name Troy Picelli. You know, one before he even did his own stream, he was on a stream for a guy named Pops. That's his YouTube channel. It should come up as one of the first 3 search results. Do not scroll down. If you type the word Pops into YouTube search, do not scroll down too far, but scroll down enough to look for. In fact, I'll find it right now because this guy was. I'm not in a gay way, but he was on fire. Like, you know, not like on fire, but he was on fire last week. Like, you know, like with the Star Wars content. And we're gonna find him right now. I mean, that's cool too to be on fire. You know, I got a friend who's very on fire, so he self-admits to it. But see, I'm already finding like the pimple popper stuff. But here we go. Okay, I say, oh God, what the fudge? Okay, don't look at that. There we go. So I wish, you know, I guess there's a way to, you know, do the search better where you don't find of this stuff. But anyway, this is the gentleman right here. And his name is @Pops, so actually that's much easier to find than using the YouTube search feature. And so, you know, I'll give a little narrative here. Last week, this guy here was doing a lot of Star Wars content. A lot of, like, on May 25th. And then a gentleman named Troy Picelli was doing Star Wars content as well. I'm going to find him real quick. Oh my God, it's a funny Super Mario picture on Chad M's channel. I'll have to make note of that later. And if you misspell any of these names, you get a lot of this stuff, man. Let me tell you. Yeah, so the show is called Last Call with Troy Picelli, and it's got like a nice little logo and stuff. And so this guy here, like, is running a stream. And as he's ending his stream, I mentioned, hey, I'm doing some astronomy, guys. And, you know, he basically, they perform a raid. Now, a raid is when people from one channel flock over to another channel midstream. Oh my God. That's funny. It's a freaking MASH song in MIDI. I gotta watch this show again. Now, if you ever hear this song with the words in it, boy, it's a little more depressing. It's a beautiful song, but it is like, I don't know, bittersweet, I guess would be the word for it. But I do recommend subscribing. In fact, let's get Chad's channel in there. Chad Middleton. No relation to Kate Middleton, I suspect. There we go, I got you. But yeah, if you never heard the actual lyrical version of that song, I might recommend you don't. But if you have, it's not bad. It's just, like I said, bittersweet. We got a lot of WWE action on Chad's channel. I didn't know you can make a short of this long. I guess this is about 60 seconds. I gotta hear it in stereo. Oh, pretty nice. Yeah, because MIDI music, now of course when you re-record MIDI music as a, you know, regular, you know, audio track on a video file, it's not gonna be MIDI music, no doubt. Thank you for allowing me to share that as opposed to, you know, copyright claiming me, which you could potentially do. You know, you can click a button and say like, this guy is using my content. But yeah, like I want to get the image to look like that. We're getting there. I think we're getting there, and I think this makes it brighter. This makes it darker. Whoops, a little too much. We gotta be careful. We gotta, like I said, it's gonna be like balancing on a knife's edge. And I think as I close it up, we start to lose some I wish it would process the corner of the image first. What I'm thinking to do is walking the graph to the right. Like I'm gonna do a little experimentation here. And at this point, I mean, it's still blasting imagery. Now, what I could do is I could probably do something like crank up the image gain, but I feel like that would be real risky. Could ruin a lot of work. So anyway, let's see what I put the application. Here it is. Okay. We could try doing this. That seems to make it darker. Oh yeah, actually, you can see like this thing gets really skinny, this little bar here. And actually, it looks like we're making little progress there, right? Because, yeah, okay, good, okay, good. You see, multiple times I've tried to do this, and I failed, like, blunderously. And so I was kind of doing this just now because I was afraid that I was wasting time doing 5-minute exposures, which right now we have about an hour and a half worth of exposures. Now, actually, we have more. We have 5 times 10. Yeah, we got about an hour and a half worth of images being stacked together. And I was really worried that if I couldn't get this program to give me something that looked something vaguely like this, that, you know, I was gonna have a lot of wasteful raw data. But a few months ago, I think actually might have been March, I changed the way I did things. I used to crank up the gain until I could see stuff. Like right now it's pretty dark, so I would crank up the gain until I started seeing things here. And it would make it appear to be easier during processing, but it would get pretty grainy and the contrast wouldn't be broad. Then I read somewhere that I should have this setting, and I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. But then I accidentally stumbled across this, and I said, all right, we're going to keep working at it. And actually, I only discovered this or learned to use this through color imaging from a guy who does cool astronomy content, but the guy's a prick otherwise. And I don't watch his channel. I unsubscribed from the guy, but he was a miserable prick. He was having a debate with somebody, and he was just an insufferable prick to the guy. He was, you know, his intellectual intellectual opponent. So yeah, interesting that you mentioned that, Chad, and that you recently watched the Quatermass, I should say. I think it's Quatermass. Let me see how it's spelled, because like I was calling it Quatermass too. Let's see if I can get the right spelling. So Bernard Quatermass. Yeah. So you might be like, I don't know what the word. What's the word for that? Dismayed to find out that it's spelled Quatermass. Because like I was doing Quartermass too. I think someone else pronounced it Quartermass. I think on Clobbering times when Raquel or R.M. Briggs and Clobby were going over this movie, that's where I learned of this movie and managed to find it and watch it myself. And what the fuck? There's a remake? Oh man, everyone's got to remake everything. Sometimes a remake can be nice. Sometimes it can be bad. I might check out the remake, but I mean, I think the original had its own particular charm. I don't know why I'd watch a remake of something that I'm mostly watching because of its charm as an old movie. But yeah, so in the movie they're pronouncing his name as Quatermass, and I'm like, well, if his name is Quatermass, then it must be spelled differently, right? And so apparently it is. But let's see if we can find the Quatermass experiment remake, because I didn't even know if there was a remake. Whenever I hear about a remake, I like to look up pictures of it, you know, the judge a book by its cover, so to speak, you know. And it's like, okay, you got that poor fella. I'm gonna guess this guy looks kind of like that poor fellow there, unless this is Dr. Quatermass. Sometimes when they do a remake, they hash it out more, like they kind of go over cover ground that wasn't covered in the original. Now, I saw Quatermass Experiment Part 2, and that was different and interesting. I'm holding off to watch. I'm going to watch Part 3 at some point, but I didn't see Part 3 yet. But I will see it at some point. 60s remake. Do you mean the Part 2? Or do you mean you watched the new Quatermass Experiment? Oh wait, the Quatermass experiment and the pit. Now, is this one movie? Like, title the Quatermass experiment and the pit. No, I'm kidding. I think that sounds like the pit is a different movie. There's a lot of things called the pit. Okay, there we go. Ooh, ooh, that looks like an evil freaking teddy bear. Man, that's something about this looks dark. Oh man, I love the artwork on this cover. That is a dark artwork cover right there. I mean, you got someone being pulled down by goblins, and you got this kid holding photographs for some reason, and he's got his like demonically possessed teddy bear. And Jamie wouldn't kill anyone. Jamie wouldn't. I gotta say it in a deeper voice. Jamie wouldn't kill anyone unless Teddy told him to. You know what? I was supposed to say that with an exclamation at the end. That's okay. I'm just having fun here. Real. All right. All right. We're gonna look that one up, my friend. Oh boy. I'm in for a potential treat here. See, look. We keep writing that autocorrect. You might be typing that. You might notice spelling, and autocorrect is hitting it differently, and that's okay. Wait, yeah, that's okay because like, wait, what is Google correcting? Isn't it spelled? Oh, I see. There's one. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So anyway, you did spell it correctly. You did remove the R. It was just missing an S, but that's okay. I'm not here to be a grammar Nazi. Okay, so let's see here. Wow. Holy shit. I need to see this. I don't know what's going on here, but we got nice boobs in the picture, and a devil, and I believe Bernard Quatermass. But man, Barbara Shelley, isn't it? Yeah. And I always found it funny. It's like American. There's an American main character in a British movie basically. Now I don't know if there's a different Quatermass in this version of the movie. It might. I don't think so. I can't really tell. But yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out. Thank you for giving me something for my movie list. I do love adding stuff to my list of movies, you know? Oh, okay, good, good. Okay, good. Did I see part? I did see part two. I saw part two already. Good. So I can see this one. I'm good. All right. Cool. That is perfect, my friend. And I am poised to see this movie, The Quatermass and the Pit. That rocks. All right, so let's see. So, okay, so anyway, let's take a look at the position of the object we're looking at right now. And it looks like we're actually going to be slamming into the meridian soon, which is to be expected. Now, the meridian is an issue. Why? Well, let's actually open up another program, and I'll show you exactly why. Ooh, that looks trippy. Let's see if we can fix that. So, this is a color image of my telescope right now, which could be nice. You can see the USB hub. Yeah, we can see the USB hub over here, which has these blue LEDs. And it's sort of antithetical to the whole light pollution thing. It's helpful so that I know the USB hub is powered. Oh, shoot. I left the kitchen light on. Did I leave the stove on? I hope the kitchen isn't on fire. Hope the kitchen isn't glowing in the dark because it's on fire, you know? That would suck. Let's see if we can see. Nah, the kitchen... Well, I don't know. I can't tell if the kitchen's on fire. Let's change the camera settings. This camera is really weird. So, if I link this camera to my surveillance camera software on my server, which I've just been lazy about doing, I'm pretty sure it would automatically switch between night vision and daytime mode. But right now, it doesn't. Right now, I basically can... In fact, it's sort of like it's supposed to switch based on the time of day, I think. There was a trick to doing this. I vaguely remember every time I'm always doing this is an absolute pain in the ass. Well, it's not an absolute pain in the ass. It's a minor pain in the butt. I guess I don't need to change this right now. I can just tell you what's going on. Okay, so basically we've got this telescope here on a mount. And I'm just going to zoom out. And there's a bug. There's a spider on it, onto the camera lens, apparently. Oh, I can't click on it unless I close this window. Well, before I close it, I'm going to try one more time. And if you're getting tired, so am I. So don't worry, I'm not going to keep you all up. No, okay, of course, people are free to leave whenever they want, you know that. I wish I could remember how to do this. Like, end of night is 4 a.m. So why is it in daytime mode? If I put it in manual mode, what happens? Yeah, right. It's freaking aliens. It's the radiation, bro. Now we're gonna log into the camera the hard way. I think it's 192. We're gonna find out. I think it's 192.168.250.251. Oh wait, I could have just checked this camera software. It would tell me right here. Remote connection. 1.8. Hopefully, I hope that's not like dangerous, like giving out shield frequencies to a starship, you know, like, oh, the shield frequencies are 1.086 megahertz. Hey, what's up there? Happy Solstice Month. Thanks for dropping by, Praxis Seizure on Rumble. Praxis Seizure on Rumble. And once again, thank you, Praxis Seizure on Rumble, for dropping by. I apologize for not seeing the, you know, the chat earlier. I do have a bad habit of not seeing the Rumble chat. Maybe I'll just get a fourth monitor and stick both chat windows on them, because it's a little tricky managing both chats consistently, you know? Actually, it's not totally difficult. I just have to keep them open at the same time. Like, basically, I got to do something like this. I got to do that, you know? And it would be fine if I did that. In the meantime, I'll log into the camera. See, I got Rumble over here now, but sometimes it's not open. I don't have it open the whole time, so I feel terrible not doing that. But yeah, he's absolutely right, or he or she's absolutely right. In the Northern Hemisphere. Oh, thank you. Cool, you're still here. I respect that, and I appreciate you still being there. But yeah, you know, I'm going to do my best. Like, you can see now I got the window open so I can see both everything. Oh, excuse me. And my camera's off right there on that screen, because that's not usually a screen I share, but I just wanted to show you guys how it's set up. But yeah, so anyway, it is this summertime. It is June. We're gonna have the solstice, I think, near my birthday on the 24th. And so, you know, the nights get shorter, which is good and bad. It's bad for astronomy because sunrise happens pretty early. So if sunrise is at 5:28 or 5:30 a.m., the sky is getting pretty light by 5 a.m. So, you know, as the sky gets brighter, the more difficult it becomes to take time exposure images of the sky, as you can imagine. Really? Is it banned because of copyright reasons, or because they're a bunch of, like, wusses? Because, you know, on Internet Archive, and thank you very much. I appreciate that, Praxis Seizure. He wished me a happy birthday on Rumble. Full sun birthday, yeah. You know, I gotta take the day off on the day. My birthday's on a Saturday. I work on Sunday the day after, so I gotta take the Sunday off, because that's usually more likely to stay up late on your birthday. He's got uncontrollable yawning. Forgive me, guys. But yeah, I'm a little behind on the chat on YouTube too, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Because I know they're more likely, archive.org, to succumb to pressure from, you know, anyone complaining about disinformation. So, for example, during the COVID thing, anytime there was a news article that you wanted to archive on the Wayback Machine, which is on the Internet Archive website, it's basically a thing that logs web pages, and it has a lot of really old web pages, like web pages that haven't been on the internet in like 15, 20 years are listed there. So, what we do is, there we go, I got it now. It should kick in. No? Oh, there we go. Okay, good. There we go. Okay, good. I got my night vision working now. See, it's so tedious. So if I had this camera linked to my server instead of directly talking to it from my computer with the Chinese software that came with it, I would be able... Oh, that's a cute spider. Let's see if we can get this spider in frame. Now, I always got to reorient the camera a little bit because the way the camera is set up right now... Yeah. I want that spider in focus, yo. Wow. Wow. It's banned because it scared kids who watched it, and supposedly it was if the director's take on pagans being a cult. So it's like, don't insult the pagans? And look, I get it. Pagans aren't all bad anymore. They're not like they've had their up and down phases, but oh wow, it's so cool. I'm so glad we're streaming this right now. I'm recording too. All right, let's stop the recorder, start the recorder, and we got our spider buddy. You know what's crazy? That spider might even be able to see the infrared light coming off that camera. There's a possibility. Yeah, right? Isn't it cool? Praxis Seizure says, that is so cool. Observation without perturbation. A word that I'm going to have to look up now. It's good to look up words. Like, I take for granted words that I hear all the time. And I'm suspecting that the second definition is the one we're going with. Not mental. The first definition is anxiety and mental uneasiness. The second definition is a deviation of a system, moving object, or process from which its regular or normal state or path caused by an outside influence. Okay, that makes sense. Cool. Glad I checked the Rumble chat today. But yeah, I think he or she's building a web right now. I guess it's a mama spider probably. Yeah, it's probably a she. Man, yeah, we're sidetracking the stream here, buddies. I'm gonna take the parsec window and move it to my third monitor real quick. Okay, and if you guys want to see some stars, let me know. I'll put them in the corner of the screen. In fact, I'm gonna go and set that up right now. I have a little methodology here. I gotta do window capture, and I gotta do parsec 2. All right, good. I think we can do this, but there's a little, whoops, let me get that off the screen. That's not helping right now, is it? All right, good. I'm gonna put this on the side. Should we name the spider? So I was going to go over something about the telescope mechanism itself, but basically the bottom line is the telescope is on a diagonal angle right now. You can see the telescope is on a diagonal angle in this image here. And what's happening is as the Earth rotates, the stars are going from east, which is on the right side, to west. So this has to counter the Earth's rotation by also moving from east to west to keep the images in the middle of the frame. Now, while that's happening, we run into a problem because the back of the camera will eventually bump into the tripod, basically. And so, before the camera bumps into the tripod, is that rain? Hope that's not rain. Anyway, before the camera bumps into the tripod, I might be running outside, and I think I'm running outside in a minute. Hey Google, is it raining? Oh, it's okay. Google says there's only a very slight chance of rain right now. That means there's a slight chance of rain. Okay, let's check the Rumble chat. I'm gonna have to set up a utility for the Rumble chat at some point. Um, and the meaning of that term, the meaning of perturbation is, it means without disturbing the environment, according to Praxis Seizure on Rumble. And yeah, I too hope the chat, or the chat and I, give the spider a good name. You did see rain, right? I saw it too. Now, it could be like a light drizzle, which isn't catastrophic for the equipment, but, you know, it's moderately inconvenient. You know how, that can go. I mean, you got like thousands of dollars of accumulated equipment, like, not to be bragging, but, it was gradually accumulated, and it does amount to thousands of dollars. The bottom line is, when the camera's about to bump into the tripod, the software I use for controlling the telescope is designed to do what we call a meridian flip. And a meridian flip is exactly, what we were talking about a little earlier, in which, and it's cool, I could probably do something a little different to get Mr. Spider or Mrs. Spider in frame. I could actually do something even vastly cooler. We can do, let me see, window capture, LMS. Whoops, no. Discard. Get off. Don't ruin the image. Let's try that again. Window capture, LMS1. And there we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a cool little trick. I have, oh, what, the spider's gone. Oh, he's to the left, I see it. I'm going to aim left. I should be recording this directly. There we go. But we got our spider friend there. Oh, there we go. We got nicer exposure too. Man, this is like, we're doing some science right here, We're doing some real science by accident. So yeah, I'm recording it directly using the software on the telescope, on the surveillance camera software now. But we're going to keep this opened on the side. Whoops, sorry, not too far. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to let that go, right? We cannot let that go. It's just too cool. I don't know how late I'm going to stay watching this spider, but I cannot let them go now. Even if it's a little inconvenient, because I have to move this parsec window around like a madman to try to get it to, like, trying to find like a good place for this application window, as you can see, like. Oh, where did Miss Spider go? Well, we went from astrophotography to spider photography, man. Wow. That is so fucking cool. Oh yeah, we're already at max zoom, I think, too. Like, so when I panned, I was still zoomed in. Yeah, so we both saw a couple of raindrops there, Praxis Seizure, and not a big deal, but we're gonna keep an eye out. 1 or 2 drops ain't too bad. It could get crazy all of a sudden. He's right. Praxis Seizure on Rumble says it could get crazy all of a sudden, and yeah, dude, meridian slips and meridian flips on the telescope. Yeah, they make awesome time lapses, and sometimes I'll do like I'll run the recorder on this application continually so that I can capture a meridian flip. The problem is when I do that, this app seems to get a little unstable at times. Like, before I had to restart my computer basically because it, like, got stuck. It wouldn't close, and not a big deal. It's just, like I said, I gotta link the camera to my surveillance camera. I think I'm actually at the maximum elevation of this camera. Let's see. Yeah, we're at maximum elevation. So what I want to do with this camera was put it like on an angle so it's pointing up, and instead of, whenever I want to point straight, I would just point low. But I think the spider is done. So, I mean, we're not done, but they're out of frame. So we're going to go back to this now. But essentially, I could point it pretty low. As you can see here. Like, and oh, that was a weird little glitch. But I can get it pretty low. Like, almost unnecessarily low. Like, if a cat's walking by, that's cool. But I can't get it any higher than where it goes already. Let's zoom out. Yeah, there we go. And I mean, this camera is $100. Like, it's a really good camera for the price. You know what? I should have gone wide earlier, because even though I can't pan up, I can go wide. And if I go wide, maybe we can see the spider in less detail. But I mean, I think we're done being voyeurs on our spider, If I had to name the spider, I guess I'd stick with Spidey. It's a simple name. It's not a great name. Oh, Mardone. Oh, also, my friend sees this stuff on his camera all the time. It looks like it's raining, but it's like pollen or some shit. So it could be pretty routine, like, stuff. It might not even be rain, but it looks highly suspect. What tells me it's not rain is the way it seems to it curves around by the wind, but you may be seeing me run outside in a minute, putting a cover on this thing. Wouldn't be the first time I had to stop rain. And, a lot of times I get lucky, the thing is pointing on an angle. Yeah, right, the velocity. It's funny you mention that. There's a director, I forgot his name, but there's a Japanese anime movie I saw called Voices of a Distant Star. And it's got like the most, in my opinion, the way the musical store ties into that battle scene is really cool and epic and a bit emotional. But the director of this movie, like, made a movie called, like, I think 24 meters a second or some shit like that. 34 meters a second or 8.5 meters a second. I forgot the name of it, but let's just say 20 meters per second. And it's basically, the movie is named after the speed at which cherry blossoms fall from a tree. So I guess they're falling like feathers, and, the air or wind drag is slowing down the cherry blossom. And it's supposed to be a love movie, so I haven't seen it yet because, I mean, no offense, I'm just, not super into romantic movies. But then again, Voices of a Distant Star was also a romance movie, but a bit of a different romance. Some people thought it was a little weird because it involves time dilation. So when the girl goes interstellar, travels, to a distant star, the boyfriend remains, like, continues to age at a normal rate, and years go by. She's like 16 years old when he becomes like, 20 years old. And I haven't caught anything creepy. Spock, it's good to see you. Spock's Friday Nights. He's got a poppin' channel, and I recommend you guys check out Spock. And I do have to apologize for, ignoring my friend on Rumble. Not ignoring, we've been reading the chats on Rumble. We got a friend on Rumble right here, and I do encourage you to consider subscribing. You're not obligated to, but I just want to shout out Spock's Friday Nights. And you're not obligated to check these guys out right now, but since I did mention, all of these guys earlier, I want to just make sure I shout out, everyone that, I just want to make sure I want to shout out everyone. Because on the YouTube side, we had Chad M. So I'm just going to make sure we put out some of the names there. And I think, well, it's everyone for now. Yeah, I think that's everyone who is here today. But yeah, so anyway, you have a good night, Chad M. I think Chad M already left, and that's cool because he has an 8-hour desert bus trip in the morning. Boy, oh boy. I want to thank Chad M for dropping by, because man's got an 8-hour bus trip in the desert. Yo, I can't wait till he, comes back or comes back to the internet. I hope I remember this. I want to ask him about that because, like, just, all I can say is I went on a commute into a tunnel. I can't say I went on a desert bus trip when I go on anywhere. So, that's cool. Yeah, I was on the Rumble side, so I should probably drop in a Rumble link while I'm at it. Here we go. Just so we can see Rumble link for reference. Not that, I expect Rumble link, but this will allow you to subscribe to me on Rumble if you have a Rumble account, Spock. So I got this god-awful racing game for Nintendo Switch, by the way, and I'm mentioning this because, well, real quick, before I mention the racing game, I do want to finish reading the Rumble. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything in the Rumble chat, because I am very appreciative of the Rumble side of things today. I just adjust the motorized focuser because as the temperature drops, the telescope shrinks, and it means that we lose focus, and so I just adjusted the focus a wee bit. But real quick, I'm going to finish reading the chat here. Yeah, rain's a minor noise. Hey, yo, for real, that shit is art. And no doubt, thank you, Praxis. So anyway, now I'm going to get back to the astronomical stuff. And real quick, I did want to mention, because I played a god-awful racing game on Nintendo Switch. And it wasn't a bad game, actually. It was a good game. I think it had like a 3-letter abbreviation for the name. But the problem I had with this game was it was just impossible to drive. I mean, like, when I play a racing game with my Xbox 360 controller, I have triggers, right? Variable sensitivity triggers. These really useful things. So you could do, light on the gas, half gas, more gas, full gas, pedal to the metal. And when you're braking, just like in a real car, you can sort of like be light on it. You can accelerate a little bit to simulate a car when, it's moving without putting pressure on the pedal. You could simulate that, right? But then, like, you could ride on the brake a bit. But on a Nintendo Switch, you hit the brake, it's immediately full brakes. And when you accelerate, it's full acceleration. And that's not how you drive in a real car. That's like not a good simulation for racing, Now, people would argue that on PlayStation 2, that's how it worked. But this is not true, because on PlayStation 2, they literally have analog buttons. In fact, next time I play PlayStation, maybe I'll show that, because I have a, semi-modded PlayStation 2. At least I have a PlayStation that runs some homebrew or some diagnostic apps on it in addition to games. And when you open up the diagnostic app for the gamepad, you can see that when you press the L buttons and the regular buttons, everything but start, select, and the directional pad, every button except for those, like, 6 buttons will actually be pressure sensitive, and that's because they were analog buttons. And so even though, basically Nintendo controller, every button presses either 1 or 0, on or off. On PlayStation 2, when you press a button lightly, like you try it out in Grand Theft Auto 3, if you have an old copy of GTA 3 or GTA Vice City on a PlayStation 2, press the X button lightly and see what happens to the vehicle, how it moves, and then press it more heavily and see how the vehicle accelerates. That's because that button is actually pressure sensitive, because it's using analog sensitivity. The computer, I think, is measuring sensitivity. It's measuring from 0 to 255, but it's using an analog method of measuring, of creating that difference in potential for the circuit. Well, Nintendo Switch doesn't have analog buttons, and so they really should have included this type of trigger here. But they wanted to save a few cents on every Nintendo. They wanted to save a few dollars. Even though the Nintendo Switch Pro controller is already $80, they wanted to, I guess, make more money on it. Or maybe they knew they were going to produce less of them, so they wanted to, just kind of make sure to keep costs down. But it's not a move I appreciate on Nintendo's part. Yeah, isn't that weird? It's not even my idea, Praxis Seizure. Like Praxis Seizure on Rumble says that the fact that thermal expansion affects the focus is such attention to detail. That's not my attention to detail. Like, if it was up to me, I would not be doing that shit. If it was up to me and I had a conversation with God, if there's a God, you know, I would ask that God to make it so that aluminum in telescopes does not shrink or something. I don't know how you do that in a wishing well situation, but like, it's like one of those things, like when I argue with flat earthers or debate flat earthers, I'm like, dude, I wish the earth was flat. It would make this hobby a bit easier. There's a reason why that mount that my telescope is attached to is designed the way it is, and it has to do with polar alignment, and you wouldn't have that on a flat earth. But anyway, let's see here. Yep, analog buttons are nice, and you know, I don't know if these are technically analog buttons or if they're using some kind of, you know, digital sensoriness, but either way, yeah, I definitely appreciate that varied sensitivity, and I appreciate that the PlayStation 2 was a bit ahead of its time, or I don't appreciate that Nintendo is the opposite of ahead of its time. It's a little primitive in that regard, and like, I get it, the Switch is a simpler device, but it's way more advanced than the PlayStation 2. So they should have been able to do better. Yeah, right, things would be simple if the Earth was flat, except maybe orbit. Orbit might be a little complicated, but you could still, you know, I'm sure we could work it out. Like, it'd be very interesting if, like, the Earth was flat and every planet was flat, and to travel to other places, you have to jump off of this one. And then you gotta, like, it's like the new Zelda game, basically, which, I'll have a compilation video. Oh, UFO. See? UFO? It's a UFO. That straight line in the corner is a UFO, because if I can't identify it, it's unidentified. Therefore, it's a UFO. But, of course, it could be something very mundane. So, anyway, I'm actually pretty happy about this over here, and you know, I kind of rough shot the focus here. Usually what you do is you activate temperature compensation, and it will contract by a certain amount based on a temperature sensor, but you gotta be damn sure that the temperature sensor is accurate, you know. And interestingly, I don't even know if this is showing me the temperature here, which is funny because this driver utility here, it's equipped to deal in temperatures, but I'm not seeing it in here. Now, I can open up another program that controls the focuser. And in this case, it can't connect to the focuser because it's in use. So we're going to try again. That's weird. It should connect. There we go. Okay, we got to be careful because yeah, it's supposed to give a temperature reading 12.5 degrees Celsius, which is like 54 degrees Fahrenheit. So for every degree that you have a drop in temperature, you can tell this over here to move down a certain amount of steps. And if I knew what that amount of steps was, if I was, you know, I'd have to sit down on a night like this or another night and basically like monitor it and try to figure out what the correct number is and then apply it. But the reality is, the ideal scenario is to configure autofocus, and this program is, you know, manual control over here. The only thing it'll do is it'll do backlash compensation. Basically, the gears, when they go in reverse, the teeth of the gears are going to have a little gap. So it's got to, you know, basically, if I'm moving forward, it's fine. But the minute I go backwards, the gears have a gap. And now it's like the next gear tooth has a gap in it until it engages. So this is supposed to like move forward or back. It's supposed to move backwards a few extra steps or forward a few extra steps after moving it in order to compensate for that backlash. And I do have that configured and it seems to be working. I just updated it today. Yep. And you're going to ask me is if I have a remotely controlled, if I have a heater remotely controlled to control the temperature of the apparatus. Well, that's very interesting of a question there, Praxis. If you don't mind me shortening your name a little bit. Praxis, I believe, is the name of the Klingon moon. But Praxis asked, in fact, wait, we can make this a lot easier. I think I can make this into a pop-out window. Yeah, there we go. Okay, very good. So, our friend here, and I think I can also zoom in on it like that, and we can make it. Oh yeah, wait, there we go. All right, now we're cooking here. But yeah, so you're about to ask me if I have a heater, to remotely control and regulate the temperature of the apparatus. Yes and no. Space telescopes have that, but that's billions of dollars of engineering. Well, see, space telescopes may not be controlling the temperature for the sake of the focus, but basically to prevent the mirror from cracking, amongst other things, to allow the equipment to work. But I do have something like that I'll show you here. And so attached to the mount is a power box called the Pegasus Pocket Power Box. And it's basically got like, it takes the main power going into it, and it has a splitter that sends it out 4 different directions. We're powering the mount, the camera. In fact, we're not powering the camera. The camera has a USB connection on it, but we're powering the cooling unit on the camera, which we'll get to that in a minute. And we're powering the dew heaters right now. At least those are the 3 things that I'm currently powering. Now, the dew heaters are off. I should probably turn them on. And there's a little issue for turning them on, because if I turn on the dew heaters, I mean, I'm not on battery power, so I don't have to worry about battery power being an issue. I'm just worried that they'll heat up the telescope so much that it will start changing the shape of it. But you know what? We're going to take that risk, because the job of the dew heaters is to keep the front of the lens warm so that you don't get condensation. So there are nights, especially I remember my old telescope had a big glass front on it. And, obviously, if the telescope is colder than your surrounding environment, you're going to get condensation. And so there's 2 straps attached to the telescope. I could probably point them out. In fact, yeah, you can see one here. That black strap it's actually got a Velcro strap and a stretchy nylon thing here. Just like elastic. In fact, yeah, it's elastic band and a Velcro looking strap. And inside that strap is a heating element. This heating element wraps around the lens twice. This one barely wraps around the front once. Now, I don't think this one needs the dew heater that badly. In fact, I just realized it doesn't really matter if I leave this dew heater on, because this part here is not part of the telescope. This is the dew shield. And there's our Spidey friend again. Now, the dew shield is sort of designed to like draw away the dew, so the condensation might hit this, but it doesn't hit the lens. So anyway, if you combine a dew shield with a heating strap, you should be really good to go. Now, this one here, same thing. This one's made of, aluminum as well, or steel. I think aluminum. And anyway, bottom line is, yeah, I'm using a heating element to prevent condensation. Now, there's a second heating element. We can't see the camera right now, but on the main camera, it's got like a cylindrical shape to it, and it's got a little heat sink or radiator on it. And that heat sink or radiator is the thermoelectric cooler, or tech cooler, Peltier cooler. And basically, we can control the temperature of that inside of the camera utility here. So if we look down here under thermal controls, you can see it's on automatic control. This goes up to 255. So if you're controlling it manually, it would be receiving something like 2 volts at, I think 12 volts at 2 amps or something like that. I don't know how many amps it is, but it's 12 volts of electricity coming in. And this can increase or reduce the amount of that 12 volts and how many watts it's consuming. The goal is to maintain a temperature of negative 15 degrees Celsius, whatever that is in English, in freedom units. But in any case, we're good to go. On a hot summer's day, this thing could be running at full power and struggle to barely maintain this temperature. On a hotter night, I have to basically tell it to settle for negative 10, negative 5, negative whatever. Yeah, that's true. Thermal variance in optical materials can be really small. Dew is pretty significant. Now, if you're dealing with a mirror, now we're using lenses on this. We're using a refractor telescope, which is just lenses and stacks of lenses. But on my old telescope, it was a reflecting telescope. Big hollow can with a bowl-shaped mirror in the back. Now, some of those, especially the ones that are completely enclosed, such as what they call Schmidt-Cassegrain, they are notorious for having thermal issues, because essentially what happens is this is the optical tube. You have a lens on the front called the corrector plate. And basically, Celestron was the first company to come up with this design, I think, or they came up with a variation of this design. And basically, what they figured out was a way to cheaply mass produce the mirror. And by making it cheaper to mass produce the mirror, that was good. But the problem was it's not an aspherical, it's a spherical mirror. So you want a parabolic mirror or a parabolic lens. But when you have a spherical lens, so I'm sorry, you want an aspherical lens. But when you have a spherical mirror and it's not a parabolic shape anymore, you need a extra lens, which is up here. And that lens is called a corrector plate. And it's basically a donut-shaped lens. In the middle here, this blockage here, this shadow, this obstruction is actually a smaller mirror. So essentially, light comes in around the secondary mirror. The secondary is up here. Unfortunately, this webpage is uncooperative, but if I could, I would click on the picture. But I have this weird issue where certain web pages take an eternity to load. There we go. So light goes in, and it hits the mirror in the back, which is shaped like a bowl. Then it makes a cone-shaped light, or the light forms a cone-shaped pattern, and it hits this mirror here. Then this mirror shoots it down the center. You can see there's a cylinder here. There's actually a hole in the tube. And then you would have the camera back here. So light comes in around the front, hits the bowl-shaped mirror. You get imaginary conical shape pointing to the center obstruction, central obstruction, and then it shoots down the center of the tube to where your eyepiece or camera is. The thing is, the point I'm getting at is, let's say I have this inside the house, and I bring it outside, and it's colder outside, and I put it on my, tripod on my mount. It takes a few minutes to like an hour, or depending on the, temperature difference, it could take more than an hour for the temperature to normalize. If the temperature of the mirror is significantly different than the atmosphere, it will be really difficult to get sharp focus. And sometimes you'll get what they call currents or air currents inside the tube that will cause all kinds of weirdness. And there's actually a trick where you can like take this type of mirror and put it in front of like something like a heat source, and you'll see like shadows on it because it's got this weird optical property where it can see infrared radiation or some shit like that. But yeah, so that's a situation where like having like billion-dollar NASA technology, million-dollar equipment would definitely, solve it, because you could have a heater there. The more expensive version of this telescope has little vents on the back. Some people will modify it and throw in some fans, but you got to be careful to make sure the air is filtered. Just something I thought I'd share, but I'm cooling the image sensor on the camera because, oh shit, Spock is in the chat on Rumble. Good to see you, bud. So I'm using a cooling unit on the image sensor because of the noise. So essentially, if you ever use a camera phone in a low light environment, you're going to get this grainy pattern. And sometimes on the telescope, when the cooling unit is off, you'll get these white speckles like you can see here. These are probably not stars. This like fine white dot here is probably a hot pixel. And when there's more heat, you get more hot pixels, because essentially image sensors are responsible for converting light into electrons. And then each pixel will have a shade from, of gray or shade of black, and you get more electrons with more light. And we're going to find a picture of a generic image sensor just to give you guys an example. And they come in many forms, but it's basically a microchip with a clear front on it. And sometimes they'll have this weird rainbow pattern, but basically they have two types. I'm using a black and white camera, and then I switch between different color filters. But a color camera has micro lenses in front of each pixel. And technically, even a color sensor is black and white. It's measuring shades of gray from 0 to 255. 0 being black, 255 being white. And if you put a filter in front of it, it's still going to be black and white. But now the computer inside the camera knows there's a green filter in front of this pixel. So it's going to convert it into shades of black. Instead of black and white, it's going to be black and green, black and blue, black and red. A normal camera has more green because the human eye can sense more green, more cones. But in astronomy, more green cones, I guess. But in astronomy, we're wasting a bunch of photons since space doesn't have a whole lot of green in it. So what we do is we use color filters, and we basically take one picture in black and white with red, green, or blue separately. That allows us to make efficient use of the available light. and then we can you know, manually stack like we did earlier. We can stack the frames, and then we can combine the separate colors together. And Photoshop has a basic feature called channels, and as you combine different colors, you'll see the actual correct color. And you can do this on a regular camera. And let's see here. This software here right now is called SharpCap, and I'm using the paid version, which wasn't expensive. It's one of the low-cost programs out there. It's very nice because it's not overpriced. It's not super complex. There are more complex programs I'd like to use for automation, but until I can nail down autofocus, and as you saw with autofocus, we got the temperature challenging us. We got mechanical considerations with the gears and backlash, and then we got, you know, like just other factors. But you know, I do a lot of things separately. The focus, I only recently started using the manual focus inside of the motorized focuser inside SharpCap. I used to use it in that separate application. Never caught ET, but we did see a UFO. We did see a satellite or an airplane a little while ago. I wouldn't know ET unless I was standing next to the telescope, probably. I really do want to get maybe like a camera that could see the whole sky, so that when I suspect ET, I can look at the wide field camera pointing up and make a better judgment. But yeah, now I do have an infrared filter, because the image sensors are pretty sensitive to infrared. And there is a camera I want to buy for planetary imaging that has better sensitivity for a near infrared, which I'm not even sure what near infrared is, but apparently it's different. And basically, like, when I'm doing imaging, I find that what's really cool is, you know, like, let me see if I can get an EM spectrum here. You got infrared, which is like heat related, and then you got the infrared, which is more light related. And the company that makes my filters, this is the entire spectrum that the sun emits and of colors that we can see. But if we look at like specific filters made by this company, it's almost like a radio dial for light. So the red filter is literally tuned into, like, I think between like 650 and 700-ish. And then somewhere over here you have infrared. So I have an infrared filter that covers 742 nanometers and up. So it captures everything here, but it blocks out everything here. So all of the light pollution, like Hg is mercury, Na is sodium. So street lights, a lot of street lights cover these little slivers of light here. And so the infrared filter does really good work on nebulas. Even though it's a planetary filter, it looks really good on a nebula. And you know, these are the full wideband, or you know, yeah, wideband filters, red, green, and blue. Right now we're actually on a hydrogen alpha filter, which is we could show an example of hydrogen alpha. I think if we just type in the word HA, or in fact, yeah, here it is. 3.5. Oh, that's ultra narrow band, which yeah, it's an ultra narrow band filter. But did I have the spectrum here? Oh yeah, this looks like the whole set, and they each cost $350, man. It was insane. So we got, I think that's HA. Yeah, here it is. HA is this sliver right here. So basically, right now we're only imaging this little narrow 3.5 millimeter sliver of light. Everything but this little area here is being blocked out. Now, there is some light pollution that penetrates that, but for the most part, we're avoiding light pollution. If I wanted to take a picture in red, I'd have to cover a much wider area, and that means more light pollution. And when we switch to blue and green, we get way more light pollution. So, yeah, right now we're in a pretty good place with that. And so anyway, we keep the sensor cool to reduce the graininess and noise in the image. And -15 does the trick. That's a very interesting idea. I don't know if I'm equipped to do that, and I'm not sure if the optical tube can sustain that, but I will inquire on that, because I'm sure the nerds on the astronomical forum can answer that question. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, you got the atmosphere to deal with. The filters do help, though. They definitely do help. Yeah, the reason I bought all of the filters in the same brand is because theoretically they should be par focal. So if I go from one filter to another, and it's already in focus, I shouldn't have to change the focus. In reality, the focus does change a little bit, but from what I understand, if I had a less light sensitive telescope or a slower telescope, that might be less of an issue. Apparently, the more light gathering or the tighter the F ratio, they call it, the more of an issue that becomes. Yeah, you know, it's like gradual. And you know, it's funny, I waited the oxygen filter. I waited like almost a year for that to come in. Like, it was so back ordered. I think I ordered it at the beginning of the pandemic or some shit. But that shit was super back ordered, man. Like, and the companies emailed me and they're like, oh yeah, you know, they came up with a new manufacturing process because the old mirror used to have, like, the old filter used to have a lot of issues with the with reflection or something. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. So now we're approaching the meridian, and we can let it do the automatic meridian flip. But you know what? I think I'm going to continue this this object another night, because if I do meridian flip, then I'm going to have to process images that are upside down. And I think I can avoid that. We're not going to point at Andromeda because the sun is starting to rise, but we are going to point at, there was an object we were looking at earlier. And I'm trying to remember what that object was, but there was like well, we had the Crescent Nebula, which I guess if we wait till after meridian flip, I can capture the Crescent Nebula, but that's going to be a little while. It's going to be like a little close to 5 a.m. So I think we're going to mess with the Veil Nebula starting now. We also have the Mothra star cluster, and I love, you know, it's Kaiju June, as in monster Kaiju. So maybe I should so what I do is whenever I take an image, I start with a name and I title it SV, as in solve, as in plate solving, because plate solving is what you do with a image when you want to align the telescope, and I'll get into that in a second because we're going to have to demonstrate that. So we have two choices. We got the Eastern Veil Nebula, which I kind of like because it fits in the middle of the frame. We got this one here, which is usually nice to see on a really wide telescope. We got Filamentary Nebula, magnitude 7. The lower the magnitude, the easier it is to see an object. This one is not telling me. Here it is, 7. Fleming's something another, supernova remnant. It's not saying the magnitude for that. So let me think here. Probably do the Eastern Veil Nebula. Even though this one definitely looks really action-packed, you know? Well, also, maybe we could judge it by which one is more down. Eastern Veil Nebula, that's going to buy us a little more time. So we just press the button. Now we're going to see the reticle move. Now, for a combination of factors, it's not always going to be dead on target. On a telescope with more zoom, it's a larger issue. On this telescope, it's more a matter of just, you know, of what do you call it, like mechanical issues and stuff like that. You know, I gotta strip down the mount, I gotta lubricate it, you know. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna just get these in the view. We're gonna look for a star. Now you can see the gears are backlashing a little bit. That's totally to be expected. We can crank down the exposure time if we want and see if that helps us see better, but basically what we want to do is make sure we're actually in the focus. And so sometimes what I do is I take a gamble. I'll go out like more than 100 steps, and you can see how the thing moves side to side, and then I'll incrementally move it in like 10 or 20 steps at a time. But yeah, I definitely don't recommend people get into this hobby unless they know damn well if they really want to get into this hobby. I appreciate that. When you go on Rumble, you said you'll see my videos. You enjoy Sky Enthusiast. You love Sky Enthusiast the same way you travel to remote locations to look up without a camera from time to time. That's cool. Yeah, it is nice being in remote locations. At some point, I want to do a vacation where I go to like, you know, like a remote location. I did go camping with a friend once, but I apparently had the flu that weekend and didn't know, and it was really foggy out anyway. So between me feeling like shit and the weather, I was just like, you know, I didn't even unpack my scope while we were there, but it's like it was an undertaking because, like, as you can see, I have it situated in the backyard right now, and you know, packing it up, I was really afraid of like, I was definitely afraid of, what do you call it, forgetting something at home. You know, you put the shit together and you're like, I'm missing this really important wire or something, you know. And so I spent extra time there, but it might have also been I was under the weather and I was in denial of being under the weather, so I just powered through it. So now, okay, actually what I was supposed to do just now was this. I was supposed to do a plate solving. So how do we do plate solving? Well, basically, you could do it inside SharpCap, but usually I'll use a different program to do it because I'm just more comfortable doing it in a different program. And basically, like, what we do is we have SharpCap taking pictures, and then we tell it to take the most recent picture, and it's going to take a minute to analyze it. It's going to compare it to the star map, and it's going to basically compare it to the star map and tell me how off alignment I am, and it's going to allow me to get the correct alignment. Now, another thing I want to experiment with while waiting for that image to capture is a really important issue. So whenever I take a new picture, let's say I do like a 1 minute exposure. Normally it should take 1 minute for the new image to update, but whenever I change this, it takes twice as long. So the progress bar says 1 second. It took 2 seconds for the first image to update. And so we can see that because when I update it now, you're going to see 2 seconds. And so basically the first frame is always wasted. The first frame is always a loss. So we want to figure that one out. So I'm going to do a little experimentation here. We're going to switch the camera into still imaging mode, which is going to jar the software. Like the software is going to blink out when I do this. See, it like just kind of blinked out. It blinked back. I'm not even sure if the temperature is set. Okay, good. Temperature is set. Now, number one, image gets really dark. So that kind of worries me. I think I had a similar problem yesterday when I went into this mode. Might have to go into the forum and ask around and ask, why is this a thing? But let's see now if I do the 2 second exposure. It looks like it actually abided. So 4 seconds, 4.69 seconds. So we got nearly 5 now. It looks like it updated the image quicker, right? But now let's turn off still imaging mode and see if that changes anything at all. Yeah, binoculars are a great idea because you're right. It is a hassle praxis that, you know, just bringing all of that equipment. So binoculars are a great way, especially if you're just going there for your own, you know, enjoyment. Being there with a couple of friends, memories that you treasure, as you say, you know, yeah, you're absolutely right. That is a good way to go about it. And a situation where it doesn't really allow you to do the whole equipment setup anyway. I might, at some point, buy a mount made by the same company that makes this mount. It's called a Star Adventurer. And it's basically like a lightweight telescope mount that is designed to handle a lightweight payload, like a SLR camera and a wide field lens. And they have a new one that's that's motorized now, but the original one was fully manual basically, but they both are great to have. Now I've also learned they have new mounts that use a different gear drive that is like super duper like precise, yet doesn't need to be balanced. Because usually you have to balance the counterweights, which isn't a big deal, but they support really high, they're basically like really lightweight mounts that support high payloads, and they used to be exclusive, but now they've come down in price apparently. But yeah, so I gotta wait twice as long for a new image to update whenever I do a change. So what I want to do is see if we can fix that by switching into this still image mode. But we just saw what the image looked like a second ago, and the problem I have is that when I go into this still image mode, it's really dark. And so I'm just not comfortable changing the mode that the camera operates in. If it's giving me different images altogether, like even if it doesn't explicitly say it's going to do that. Like right there, we got a blank frame. Yeah, so it looks like that I'll have to research it. Maybe I could update the firmware on the camera. But it just means that if we do a 10-minute exposure... Oh, yeah, if you're going up a mountain, yeah, I hear you. You know, like if you got a car bringing you up the mountain, cool. But if you're carrying the equipment up yourself, yeah, but sometimes you can only drive in so close. And you can only carry the equipment that is designed to sustain you, you know? Food, water... Or maybe not water unless you got like a way of filtering it, you know. But you get the point. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to do a quick exposure. See if we get like, I do see some hints of the filaments in the nebula. I think I see a hint. Once again, it takes 18 seconds to get the first 9-second exposure. So now we're gonna jump here. So anyway, I think we're going to do this in hydrogen because hydrogen is going to block the sky glow. Even though I was thinking about doing red, green, and blue in natural color. At some point, I'm going to have to do red, green, and blue in natural color. And, well, you know what? Let's do that. Because the red exposure is going to be a shorter exposure, but we're going to have to switch gears to, like, hydrogen, like, right after. Because, you know... At some point, we're going to be hitting sunrise anyway. I'm going to get myself to bed soon, watch some Japanese anime or something, and then go to bed. I'm probably going to watch either Macross 7. You know, it just gets me in a happy mood to watch Macross 7. Or I'm going to watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which a friend of mine introduced me to. He's got a YouTube channel by the name of the Nerdporeal Lifeform. It's sort of like non-corporeal, but Nerdporeal. By the way, you know, I'm mentioning YouTubers, but Praxis, just out of curiosity, you know, how do you like Rumble? Do you prefer Rumble? Do you choose Rumble because you feel safer there? I mean, if you don't want to share why you use Rumble, that's cool. But, you know, I'm just curious, is it like, because I know a lot of people went to Rumble at one point because, you know, free speech basically was a big factor. Like, there was a point in time where people felt like there was either too much censorship or content moderation, you know, if we're going to use, like, you know, fancy dictionary words here. Not fancy, but you know what I mean. Like, sometimes when you use the word censorship, people will go, oh, well, it's a private company, therefore it's okay to censor. You know, they'll have, like, reasons. And it's like, true, but at the end of the day, the net effect is that people, you know, can't speak, you know. So here's what I'm going to do real quick. I'm going to run downstairs to turn off the light to the kitchen because I want to make sure I didn't leave the stove on. I mean, I'm sure I didn't, but also I want to turn off the light for my turtle because I got a tortoise living on the dining room table in an enclosure right now, and I don't want my turtle, you know, getting too much light. Now, in the meantime, I think I actually do have a video. This is my friend Poffy, and I'm going to put her on screen while we wait. So yeah, this is Poffy, and this is her stepsister on the right. You can barely see her stepsister, Squirtle. And basically, turtles are escape artists. Let me tell you, they are escape artists, man. I mean, like, they can climb shit. That's why Poffy's side of the tank has all this extra metal, because, like, Squirtle wasn't climbing out nearly as much, but Poffy, this girl, she was getting out a lot, and then during feeding time, she just wanted. I think she was she was begging, and one of them was shedding scoots. So I was trying to figure out which turtle shedded a scoot because apparently Squirtle climbed on top of this, and I don't even know how Squirtle did it, but I saw a piece of Squirtle's shell, which sheds naturally, on top of this metal here. And that was evidence that while I was away, Squirtle got on top of this and then jumped back into the tank. Don't know how she did it. I don't know how she did it. But she did it. She definitely did it. That evidence was there. But in this case, Poffy's the one trying to climb out. And this is because she was in the middle of laying eggs, basically. In fact, yeah, that's why she was trying to climb out. She needed to lay her eggs. And it's like a thing, it's like, oh shit, I forgot to do this. Okay, so I gotta do something. Gotta click yes to this menu. So plate solving. Whoa, the computer did not like that. Well, let's see why. Okay, we got a new picture here. We're gonna tell the plate solving utility to use that image. Yeah, so basically this program sometimes gives an error when you're pointing at the meridian. And we are getting uncomfortably close to the meridian, unfortunately. I should have started on the Veil Nebula earlier. That's a star cluster. All right, good. We got that. In the meantime, while that's happening, I'm going to change the, whoops. I always forget to do that. When you change filters, which you can't see because it's hidden behind the video of the turtle right now, but when you change filters, the software takes a couple of seconds to catch up. Or, it's got to wait for the filter wheel. Because basically on the back of the telescope is something called a filter wheel. And space telescopes have these. Because NASA, big telescopes, they use, they also have to use black and white image sensors in conjunction with a filter wheel to do what they do. So we need just a bright star. I'm scanning the field right now for a bright star. I'm just taking a close look at my screen. Yeah, I think we're pretty much in focus there. Sometimes stars won't even show up or register until you're basically in focus. Or sometimes you'll see one star that's bright enough and then others that start to register. And then these white dots are hot pixels. So at some point, I have to basically cover up the camera and take pictures with the temperature set to -15. I should really do it before it warms up outside because it'll be impossible at some point. And then with the black frames, we can add them to the image processing software in order to cancel out the noise. Basically, there's actually a method for doing that. Yes, it is. Filter changes are like a clockwork machine. Some of them will have a magnetic sensor or infrared sensor to help identify which filter it's on. Some others are built cheaper. painted turtles are like cats. You're absolutely right. My friend's dad had a painted turtle. His son takes care of it, or his daughter takes care of it now. But like, him, in fact, turtle's name is Ringo. Yeah, like Ringo Starr. This is the first turtle I've ever met in real life, and he was a cool turtle. He is a cool turtle, you know. And I picked up Puffy like in 2015, I think, or like, yeah, mid 2015. Picked up Squirtle maybe like a year or a year and a half later. Adopted her from a coworker, and I decided after Squirtle, that's my limit. No more turtles. But I got one tortoise. Tortoises are different, you know, they're more like painted turtles. I'd love to get a painted turtle or a box turtle, but I was given an opportunity to adopt one, but I decided I wasn't prepared for that responsibility. I had, you know, my hands full, and you know, right now the girls, the two turtles are most likely, one of them might be a male, but Puffy is a female. She lays eggs, you know, and they live in a 150-gallon stock tank. Generally, 75 gallons is the recommended amount of water for a turtle of that species, a red-eared slider. And so splitting a 150-gallon tank is basically about right. They used to share the tank, or, you know, there used to not be a wall down the middle, but, you know, Squirtle started biting Puffy. There was a little bullying going on, and, you know, I can't have myself come home to a massacre after work, you know. It's just, I love my turtles too much to see them massacre each other, so I built a wall. So I have this one bright star on the left, and I'm hoping that I'm not overshooting the mark. Yeah, so you're right, because when I'm streaming and I'm using a program like TeamViewer or Splashtop remote desktop, for some reason I have a dead spot, a Wi-Fi dead spot at my toilet. I know, weird place to have a dead spot for the Wi-Fi, but I do. And so, you know, like, even though I have 2 wireless access points in the house and very good coverage, just that in this one area, either it's having trouble because it's trying to connect to the more distant access point, or it just doesn't know the roaming decision, because it's supposed to roam between access points. When the signal gets weak on this one, it's supposed to, you know, roam to the second access point. And the bathroom, there must be like copper pipes or some electrical conductivity issue, or radio waves can be weird. You know, sometimes like a radio wave can literally have an area between like a gap and a gap where like the signal is non-existent, and then you move 2 inches up or something like that. It's like when I put my phone on the counter while shaving, the signal is fine. But when I face forward and I'm sitting like, you know, on the toilet, which the counter is here, me sitting on the toilet is here, signal is like hell. And so the program that lets me remotely access my telescope will automatically adjust the quality, just like YouTube and Rumble will do, to a lower quality level. And at that point, when you have that grainy image you just saw, video compression will work more. It'll throw away more data when dealing with that. You'll get more blockiness on the image. Now, of course, on YouTube and I think on Rumble, you can always change the quality. So if I'm not on a metered connection, or if I have unlimited data, which at one point T-Mobile made a deal and YouTube basically provided unlimited. T-Mobile used to give unlimited data when watching YouTube on a phone using the mobile app. But I think they also added additional compression to the video. Nowadays, T-Mobile will let you have unlimited data, but if you overuse it, they'll start to throttle you down. So as long as you don't abuse it, they don't give you a hard and fast limit anymore. But you can see how, like, when I lower the quality here from 720p to 144, it gets blurry. So same thing happens, you know, the YouTube app, when the Wi-Fi signal is sketchy, will automatically go to a lower speed unless you have it on manual override. And if it's on automatic, it'll, you know, if it's set to automatic, it'll go to a lower, you know, resolution, I should say. And then it'll outright drop the connection if that fails, you know. So Rumble probably lets you do something similar, but I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that's you know, especially on a cellular connection, I would just leave it on automatic, or even set it lower. So now what I just did was, I'm going to just add one more thing by turning off that light. I'm going to see. Interesting. That's so cool. Your mother-in-law cultivates wild turtles in her various ponds. Oh, that's so cool. And It's an adorable way for a retiree to get some jollies. Yeah, dude, like, some people will swim with turtles, or they'll put their feet in the water and turtles kind of just like pass by and, rub up against their foot or whatever and interact with the humans, so to speak. The audience will never see it as good as I can, but that's okay, because what I can do ultimately is, as I get some finished processing done, because remember, these are just raw images. These are technically sub-exposures. You're supposed to take like 10 or 40 pictures, like 10 or 40 2 to 5 minute exposures, stack them together to get better contrast. The process that you use for processing gets rid of the noise while getting better detail, goose up the brightness of some elements, make other elements dimmer. Processing is like using Photoshop, but more painful. And once you do that, like planetary imaging, like at some point I got to show my processed planetary imaging, maybe like make a nice, neat, short edited video or something. Because like a picture of a planet on like the Celestron scope I used to have would look blurry. And then you run it through the processing software, and at a certain step called wavelets, which is like a mathematical thing, it would go from being fuzzy to suddenly having like fine detail. Like the rings of Saturn would look fucking awesome out of nowhere. And that was like just the way things are on with any good processing routine. Even mine wasn't even a good routine, it just worked. I followed some tutorials. So once the images are processed, if I showed them on YouTube, they'll look just about as good as I can see. Like, granted, like a still image will look better. If I ever had something that was really worth sharing, then I could probably make people, give people the option to download them or something from Google Drive. But just to give you an idea, oh yeah, this is my tortoise. He's so funny. He was climbing out. I love the opening in his enclosure. I have to modify this enclosure before I put him back in it. But like, I'm thinking about putting a ramp on it and letting him climb back in on his own. But in this case, he's gonna jump. He just like fell out. He's okay. He hit something soft. But you have some like bad astrophotography. I don't even know what. Oh, this is me panning with the telescope at a high speed on my old one. This was like an early star cluster I did before I could process it. This is a bad picture of Saturn. I'm sorry, Venus. This is like color, but the color filters are a little malaligned, so you can see like some fringing on the edge. This is Orion Nebula. This is actually one of the images where I did combine red, green, and blue filters together. This is on the orange Celestron telescope, the big tube. So you have a tighter field. On this scope, it's a wider shot, so it would generally be easier to get a good picture of this nebula. But my old telescope, even though I'm not seeing a whole nebula, I think my old telescope did a really good job on like the dust clouds, like the shaded dust clouds here. And there is a way to process to like get rid of that bloom, where you're combining different sets of stacks, but you get the idea. That's my old telescope. I cracked the secondary mirror on it. That's why I don't use it anymore. And this is my old setup. I used to set this up manually, and I'd sit there and babysit it. Now I do everything remotely. Back then, I had to turn the knob by hand to adjust the focuser. So if I had the focus right, I can go inside on a cold night, but then I'd have to periodically come out to adjust the focuser. So, progress. And apparently I had a server back then. Oh, I didn't know I bought the server back then, but I've been using that for a little while. It's a nice thing to have. This is the box I use now for the laptop. I don't use these power boxes anymore, but I still have a power strip in there. But I've moved up in the world. I've moved up and I've moved down in some ways, but you win some, you lose some. This is what I wanted to show you. So this image was actually formerly even blurrier than it is here. Like, you couldn't see the division here, this little dark spot between the rings. You couldn't see, but then after processing it, this was really well defined. And to get this image, it started off with taking a video 60 frames a second. So like hundreds of frames, like 1,000 frames or 100 frames. I think I had like 1,000 frames. And then a program would automatically eliminate the worst images. Then it would combine the remaining images and stack them to get better contrast and range. So instead of having a blurry image, it would take a little bit of an image that looked good in the corner and then discard the bad part and combine them together to get you this like clean image. But that uses a different program Autostackert, and it's a German name, Autostackert and Registax. And I think I wrote down the names here, Autostackert and Registax. And this is on my old camera, which has a tiny little image sensor. The new sensor is like that, the old sensor is that. So yeah, you know, this is some of my early lunar, and some of these came out really nice. My new scope unfortunately doesn't do this. I could put a special lens on the new telescope to get this magnification, but I don't get as much light, and it really just, it's a pain in the ass, because the more things you put, here we are, this is what Saturn looked like. See, that's literally Saturn in real time. It like looks like that when you're capturing it. You record it like a video, and then you process the individual frames from that video, and this is like what I was dealing with, to give you like a general idea. And I think that's Jupiter in this one, but that just looks like a bright spot. And one time I was even looking at this during the daytime, but you know, you get the idea. I think, you know, probably. I can't even see the chat right now, so I don't know. But yeah, it's like, you know, exactly. It's not perfect, but like, holy hell, especially when you look at where it started, it's like, it went from that to that. I was like starting to get like, not depressed, but like a little bit like regret, like, am I going too deep into this hobby? Then I got that image and I was blown away. I was like, I gasped. I was like, okay, what I caught some lightning in a bottle here or something. I was excited. I got to see that with my 16-year-old eyes through an optical telescope. Yeah, dude. In fact, that's the first time I seen like these things through a optical telescope, was like when I was that age. Literally, I was about 15, 16 years old. And I had a telescope I was borrowing from a friend. He had a random Bushnell telescope, and you had to like nudge it. You couldn't really aim it. You had to just like tap it to get it to hit stuff. And uh-oh, I forgot to hit the button. Okay, good. It worked. So anyway, now this is going to tell me how far off I was. So we weren't that far off. Oh, actually, we weren't really off at all. So we're going to run into a problem now. The sky is going to start to glow more. And at that point, and for some reason, I'm not getting really good stars right now either. Like, in fact, these are looking like they're out of focus. These are looking like they're out of focus. Oh my god. So this is a secondary telescope that's piggybacked on the back of the main telescope. And I don't know if there's been that much of a temperature change that these are so out of focus. But these are really out of focus right now. So I think I'm going to just call it a night. I wanted to do the Veil Nebula, but this is way too erratic. And I could see the sky starting to glow. So it's only going to keep getting brighter from here. So yeah, I mean, I was going to go to bed and let the camera blast away. But I mean, the program is showing a brighter sky. You can even see like in the utility. Like that's like like you talking about the solstice and all that shit before. That's the only challenge. It's the only issue. I don't mind it. I don't mind it being brighter and nicer outside, but that is a minor, you know, issue. You know, in the winter we get longer nights to work with, and the atmosphere is typically clearer. But if you have to fix a problem, you got to go out there in the freaking cold, you know. So, you know, there's that. But before I park the telescope, I'm gonna make sure it's recording, because I like to watch the telescope swing into motion. Oh, it's Spidey. Our friend is still there. All right, let's park the telescope. I'll make a little compilation clip or something like that. I wonder if I can turn off the kitchen light from my room. I think I can turn off the kitchen light from my bedroom. I don't have to turn it off from... I don't have to go downstairs to do it. As long as I didn't leave the stove on. I'm pretty sure I didn't leave the stove on. Yes, I got the IP address for my kitchen light. Oh shit, I don't remember the password. Oh, I got the password right on the first guess. Alright, so hypothetically, turning off this light should turn off the kitchen light. Unless I already... No, I definitely didn't turn off the light yet, so I'm going to double check that. I'm just... And we'll come back to our spider in a minute. Oh, yeah. I definitely turned off the kitchen light just now. Let's make sure. Oh, I gotta get that in the frame. Yep. Okay, good. I have to remember that trick in the future. That's actually really convenient. At some point, I gotta set that up in the home automation app. But yeah, so we stop the imager. I have to remember to turn off the temperature unit. Now, on a hot summer's day, I fried a camera once. In fact, that's how I bought, one of the reasons I bought this camera was because I fried the old camera, which was like, it was an opportunity to get a better camera, but I fried an otherwise good camera because I left it on negative 15 degrees. And the problem is that the outside of the cooling unit gets hotter, especially on a hot day. In the winter, you won't notice it, but if it's running at max power and it's hot outside, you're gonna have some issues there. So yeah, there we go. We just set the cooling unit to low power manual, I believe. Let me make sure I did that correctly. And then I say my good nights and all of that. So yeah, we're looking good there. Let's disconnect from the remote connection here. There we go. And let's check on that Rumble chat there. We're gonna stop. Oh, we're gonna check on the spider. I got you. Legendary Lee Candy. But yeah, Praxis, if you're out already, you have a good night. Thank you very much for tuning in. It was a pleasure. Spock's Friday Nights, I can't believe you're still here. Lee Relish, nice to meet you. And it's good. I think Praxis is gonna return. I think. Oh, good, you're still here. But yeah, I look forward to talking to you in the future. I suspect we're gonna interact more on this Rumble internet video site here. But yeah, right now I want to get the spider in the frame. Although the telescope looks way cooler. But spider, it's a spider. Can't go wrong with a spider, right? Oh, my neighbor is in the bathroom right now. My neighbor's getting up. He got work right now. I got work, just not today. I get up at like 5 a.m. to go to work at 7. But I work 3 days, 12 hours. And luckily today was my first day off. More to go. So yeah, at some point I got to switch this into daytime mode, and as you saw before, that was a huge pain in the ass. I really got to set that up to the automation app too. What the hell? What? Great. Oh yeah, it's morning time in your country. It's good to see you, Wakazashi's Tea House, which has a YouTube channel by the name of Wakazashi's Tea House. And it's a good channel. I really like it. And I'm going to put the link out for the Rumble crew because it looks like we're getting more action on Rumble right now. As Wakazashi's Tea House wakes up, us New Yorkers here go to bed. And it's wonderful having you here. And I want to encourage you people on Rumble to check out Wakazashi's Tea House. He's a gentleman and a scholar and possibly a teacher. No, yeah, I think an English teacher, if I remember correctly. But anyway, yeah, 6 p.m. It's not more. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up schedules. Good evening, Carnabon, as they might say. But yeah, it's good to see you, man. Yeah, 3 days, 12 hours, or 12 and a half. The commute might be a little grind, but you know what? It's better to have that commute 3 days instead of 5 days. And with budgetary issues, they haven't been hitting me up for overtime. Because, look, overtime is good money, but people always, when they need overtime from you, they're always going to tell you how great it is and how big of a favor it is to give you overtime. But they usually, like, whether they're management or people who like calling in sick for work, they usually have their self-interested reason for wanting you to do overtime or wanting you to think that overtime is the coolest thing ever. That was interesting. I don't know why. I don't know if the camera has a real aperture in it, but we're gonna switch the camera to daytime mode as soon as I figure out how to do that. Now it looks bright already. Like You know, it looks pretty bright. Although the video compression is definitely up there on this. But yeah. So yeah, but I had a pretty good night. Got some good imaging done of a nebula earlier in this stream. Beyond that, yeah, no stargazing on your channel. Well, no more stargazing on my channel tonight or today either. And I don't know how the weather is going to be tonight, but I'm going to take a gamble and hopefully it does not rain. Hopefully it doesn't rain, because if it does, I am screwed. No, I'm kidding. But it might have drizzled earlier. We're not really sure. I thought I turned off my kitchen light. What is my? Does anyone remember the IP address of the light in my kitchen? I forgot what it was. Ah, here it is. Yeah, man. I'm glad I could share that today, man. And I'm glad I could share that awful fucking racing game with you. No, I'm kidding. But whatever the racing game was, it was a good racing game. It just was terrible on the Nintendo Switch. That's what I'll say about that racing game. Yeah, I might go and check the kitchen light, make sure it's not that I didn't leave the stove on. But yeah, so with that being said, I think I'm going to conclude this stream. Yeah, I'm definitely going to conclude it. I'm just going to do this properly because there's an order of operations here. You know, I'm using Rumble and YouTube on Restream. And one thing I've learned is that I was I was having like a real, like, basically if I end it too early, one of them ends prematurely in the middle of a sentence and the other one ends right on time, like between YouTube and Rumble. What's the name of what? Wakazashi's Tea House? No, okay. The spider, I named the spider Spidey from earlier in the stream. There was a spider in front of the camera. Or were we talking about the Japanese anime? The game. Oh, yeah. Let me see if I can remember here. CSR. I had like a weird name, like CSR. Let me see here. Let me see if it might have been CSR. It was like a rally car racing. Yeah, I think it was one of these because it had like rally car racing in it. Oh yeah, WRC. I'm sorry, WRC, which, like I said, I'm sure the PC version of this is very good if there is a PC version, but playing this on a Nintendo Switch was quite painful for me. Like, and I'm afraid that if I get used to playing, like, I mean, maybe I'll get used to it. But I mean, it definitely they got the drift dynamics right. That's why I'm reluctant to badmouth the game itself, because they do have the drift dynamics, but not having this variable trigger here or analog buttons like on the PlayStation 2, which are also variable sensitivity, pain in the ass, Now, Art of Rally was a good game. I think I had that on the PC. I didn't know they had that on Nintendo Switch, but if I'm remembering Art of Rally, yeah, I had an early version of this game that didn't have any outdoor settings. It was almost like playing in a flat plane inside of a Escher model. I certainly wouldn't pay $80 for it. Maybe they put a lot more work into the game, but they had like a very primitive looking game on the PC that I played a while ago, and it was cool because like it was very focused on the physics of Rally, And I remember I did a late stream on a Saturday, not late, but late because it was a work night, and some kid was like telling me that, oh, you got to play it like this, and he was right, but I was like, I'm gonna play it the way I'm comfortable with, because in what was it, Dirt Rally 2, I'm more worried about wrecking my car than I am about playing it the way that some kid thinks they should play it, or anyone for that matter. But yeah, you're right. Well, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cut off by going to the kitchen to make sure I didn't leave the stove on, and to check the lighting around my turtle. Oh, actually, no, I don't have to anymore. You know what? We're going to assume that the stove is not on. No, I'm kidding. I'm pretty sure it's not. And we're not going to worry about the light because sun is rising anyway, right? So, I mean, at that point, it's a moot point. So, okay, I guess I'm just going to have to end it. So, yeah, Sparks Fridays nights. Have a good night. And I'll see you between now and Friday. Now, jokes aside, I'm going to be playing my Dirt Rally. And I got to check out Assetto Corsa because I saw you streaming that the other day. And I want to get in on that. But Godspeed to you, Spark. And live long and prosper. And once again, Praxis Seizure. Thank you very much for tuning in. It was very nice meeting you today. And with that being said, I am going to conclude after I check my video encoder queue and decide if I want to leave my computer on. Because this is going to cook my room if I leave it on. Hey Google, what's the temperature today? Bitch. $80 degrees. I'm going to pause the video encoder right now so that my computer does not cook my room. And with that being said, I am going to hit the end button now. For all who tuned in, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave a comment. And for now, we shall end transmission. And I'm going to sit here for like a minute to give Rumble a chance to for the computer to catch up. Because I don't want to get cut off mid-sentence. What I need to do is put a video at the end, like a exit video. That would be the way to do this, yeah. I'll investigate that tomorrow. Ending transmission on my mark.